Lots to get into for this hour, Doug. Tons to get into Steeler-wise. We go over a bunch of different things. Melvin Ingram, yada, yada, yada. Lots of different things that fall out from the Browns. You go into this Monday Night Football. But let's get into a global issue, if you will, one of the NFL issues, right? It's a terrible story. This Henry Ruggs story out of Las Vegas. He's arrested for DUI. He's involved in a fatal accident. He's driving his Corvette around, hits it another car, and someone dies in that accident. This is something where, as a front office person, and you've been there are certain calls you don't want to get in the middle of the night, and this is one of them. How do teams deal with this, or what is in place whenever you do, unfortunately, get a call like this that you put in motion a plan, I guess?
Yeah,
And he's already been released.
right. First of all, I mean, anytime you have a loss of life, it's extremely tragic. And then you add the fact a young man is not only lost his livelihood, but may lose his freedom. But what you do is, as an organization, you always set up an emergency plan. And the first thing when you have rookies in or a team meeting, your director of security comes in and tells all players if anything happens, arrest, anything happens to you or your family that involves the law, call me first. And then the director of security, which Jack Kearney's the one for Steelers, soon as he gets a call, he calls the GM and the head coach. And he explains everything he knows to date and his plan of actions with his contacts of where he's going to go and try to get more information. The GM and the head coach, they get on a call and alert ownership. So all of us are all saying, okay, this is what we have to do. This is our thought process, and this is what we know. The director of security then calls 345 Park Avenue. You have to alert the NFL league office. And they then start leaning on them and some of their resources and contacts to try to unearth some information that we may not be privy to, or our director of security may not be privy to. After that, everybody gets together with your PR director to have a plan for your public-facing communication about this issue, and especially give talking points to whoever's going to talk, be it the ownership group, the GM, or the head coach. And throughout the day or throughout the night, whatever, you're just constantly updating and just constant trying to have a flow of communication. Lastly, someone, either the GM or the head coach, talks to the director of player development or player programs. This guy gets in touch with the family and the agents and says, okay, what can we do to help you in this situation, or what do you need from us? So the basis point of it is everybody has to have a constant flow of communication. You have to have a plan, but you have to be sensitive to not only the league, but the police investigation and the family. It's just, it's not always a good thing.
What leads to a team acting almost immediately as the Raiders did and cutting ties to a guy? Have they found out something more? Will they? I imagine that cuts off all support from the organization as well. He's out there on his own now, right?
I would say they moved quickly, probably from the information, but I would say I highly doubt it cuts off all support. I think they're still going to be supportive, and not only the NFL and the club, but the NFLPA will probably step in and be a lot more supportive. And I'll tell you a quick story that happened. Why I know this plan so well is, so Mondays are usually light days. Guys come in and work out. Tuesdays are days off, but some guys will come in for rehab and work out as well. So Tuesday morning, I walk in, and our director of security's there, and he says, read this letter. And the letter's like, hey, listen, it's a long letter saying, I'm not going to be here all the time, but remember, I love you. Whatever you hear people say about me, just know you are the light of my light. Listen to your mother always. If I'm not here to walk you down your aisle or see your 12th birthday or all your birthdays from here on out, know I love you. So all of a sudden, we're like, what's going on? So, because it reads like a manifesto. So we're like, uh-oh, what's going on? So immediately the director of security starts looking at the tapes, the videotapes of what's going on, because it was found by a janitor in the player lounge. So we start looking at the tapes of, there's no tapes, no video in the player lounge, but people coming out. So we ended up deducing it was Lee Smith. He's player at Atlanta Falcons now, Marshall grad. So all of a sudden, so we call in the head coach, director of security's with me, get the ownership on the call, and our team psychologist saying, okay, how do we attack this? Director of security calls the Orchard Park police. We sit and they put policemen at each entrance. We go out to all our administrative assistants and go, guys, I know we lost last week. We're about 2 weeks from the bye week, but we're going to give you the rest of the day off. And they're like, what? So we went on immediate lockdown because you didn't know what was going to happen.
Right.
We did know from talking to our trainers that Lee Smith had minor ankle injury and was coming in for rehab that day. And he was a workout warrior, so he was going to lift. So we put a guy, the assistant security guy, put him right where the players entered and said, as soon as he gets here, bring him up. So it's around 10 o'clock. We're all sitting there. They say he's coming in. And we go and bring him up, and we're all sitting there. He comes in, and his face drops. He goes, am I getting cut? And we're like, no. And we're like, we just found this letter, and we thought it was yours. And he starts bursting out laughing. And we're like, what's so funny? He goes, I can understand why you guys are thought that, and I'm not an active shooter. I'm not going to blow this place up. But unfortunately, a friend of mine passed away recently when he was young and he had young daughters. And I thought if this happened to me, I wanted to make sure I had something on paper so my daughters truly knew what I felt about them and how to go forward. So that was a case where things turned out great, but that's the type of emergency response you have to have in place as an NFL organization.
Whoa. Well, did he drop the letter? Like, how did someone else find it?
It was a rough draft, and he just threw it into the trash. Yeah, that's what it was.
Wow. Did you ever get one of those calls? Like, did the phone ever go off at like 2 a.m. and you're going, oh,
yes,
oh,
yes. We had a player, and every cut down day, he would go MIA, and we don't know where he would go, what's going on, or anything. And he was a vet, that was just really a team leader, but he would lock himself into a hotel room and just not even show up. Then there was another time a guy mismanaged his meds, and they found him, Cyrus Quandro. They found him in a field naked because he just mismanages his meds. So you get these calls, and they're all a lot of them are not criminally bad, but they're issues. They're just life issues because people got to understand. The locker room in a football team is a slice of life. So you're going to have a myriad of issues and a myriad of different problems and things that people in life have to deal with. You're going to have to deal with it in the locker room.
How do you as a personnel guy, and I want to push it forward with Ruggs specifically, or any other player who's had something like that happen, Leonard Little, there's any number of guys we can cite. How do you as a personnel guy then down the road in the future, when they say, all right, this guy's served his time, done his penance, whatever it may be, and he wants to play football again. How do you look at it from that perspective and say, do we want to roll the dice on a guy?
Yeah, we're not
like
talking
this?
about Michael Vick, right, where somebody – that was an abhorrent crime. We're talking about a loss of life and this case. Let's say Ruggs is out in 18 months or 2 years, and he killed somebody. What do you do if he says, hey, my job skill is I'm a football player, I want to come work out?
And you're thin at wide receiver.
So you have to get, as an organization, you have to decide ownership. Are you on board? And the biggest thing now is the public-facing communication and how is the ownership on board with how the fan base may react, how sponsors. You got to look at it from a macro, the total business of football, not football just on the field, but the business of football. How is this going to affect? But also, then you have to weigh. If a guy paid his time, how much longer do you have to really hold that against him? If a court of law says you have to go to jail for X number of time for the crime you committed, when you get out, are you still going to be held back for that crime?
All right, I'll put you on the spot then. I'll ask you
going
this, point blank then. Let's say that Ruggs is found guilty of this and he's sent to jail for 2 years. He's still a relatively young guy. And and he says, I worked out in jail. I'm out of jail. I'm good. I'm a free man. I paid my time for vehicular manslaughter or DUI, and I killed this woman, and it's awful. But now I'm out, and you're the general manager, and you know Mothers Against Drunk Drivers is going to be out there every practice, every game, and there's mad people, and the victim's family is going to be out there, and rightly so. They're upset. He killed a person. Would you employ him? You personally?
Me personally, I'd have to talk to him and see where his head is. There's a lot of guys that may say there's apologies, and then there's really deep down sorrow and say, I did this, but I'm not saying I don't know that, but I'd have to look at all those other factors. But the point being is, for me, what made you put yourself in that situation, and what you learned from that, and what triggers are in your life to help you not get there again. So if you have a plan of attack, then I'd be more willing to entertain that.
Real quick before we get to a break, is it a fallacy? Is it true or not that players have access to a rideshare system 24/7?
Yes. They have access. The NFLPA and NFL does so much and has so many options for these players on and off the field that they have availability to. It's a shame that they don't take more advantage of it.
Yeah.